favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Wait a second. Going back. Is there any changes to the agenda?
No, we did add one citizen comment into the town manager's report relating to the gas line, so that's on the website if you're looking for that. Came in today.
I have a chance to get to my Zen mode before I started the meeting here, so sure we get it straight. So we're good. We'll move forward. Next is approval of the consent agenda.
I'll move.
Second.
Seconded. Anything anybody would like to call out?
Yes, thank you to the water department, employees recognized in the letters for going above and beyond. And I was also gonna ask if we responded to Mr. Parizo, but I know he's here, so.
Says some comments, sure. That was a nice touch, chief. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
We're trying to have that practice in.
Great
If there's something
practice.
extraordinary, I need to know about it so we can recognize it.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a correction to the minutes. It says I left the meeting, and I did not leave the meeting. I want to get credit for the fact. Looked like I didn't stick around for the executive session.
No, you left after we went back into the exercise second time, and we turned it off. So,
So after you said goodbye to me, you went into another executive session? Oh, okay.
yeah. So that,
I
that's
miss
what
anything
it
good?
was. Was something not,
So is somebody feed on the bad that what you talked about?
it was not bad.
One of our managers announced his retirement.
Okay, I knew that.
So that's what it meant.
Oh, got it. So I guess it's right.
Strike that edit.
Strike the edit. All in favor of approving the consent agenda as drafted, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Citizen comments. Kevin, come on forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, let me publicly thank you, Brian, for sending the email letter out that you did back in July. And so that's why I'm here, is I think all of you got my email. I was just wondering what the status is and if we're making progress. And
Either, was it myself or you, Chief? I thought it was you, Chief, that sent the follow-up on that, it was me.
Yeah, I think it was you. I did the airport issues.
I have not heard back. When you got that, I sent a follow-up, and what was that, a couple weeks ago, maybe?
well, the only letter I had was the one that Kathleen had sent me, the CC'd
No,
me.
when you sent me a note, sent
Oh.
us a note asking,
You mean as to what the update was?
yes,
The 10th,
the 10th?
yes, of October. Yeah. And what I did, I referenced the pursuance to your
Yeah,
letter
I
of
had to sign. I
July
wasn't-
30th.
There was, some missing from last time, so you've already signed it.
I did. Where?
Oh, I don't know. Sorry.
Topic of my letter.
Well, it was talking about the emergency.
Do you have the copy of the letter there?
I do.
Just what's the subject matter on?
Creation of emergency access Seymour Street. It was sent to Sheldon, Michelle, and Dan. Sheldon Hooton,
Yeah.
Boomhauer, and Delaplare.
Sure.
Am I close?
Dan Delavriere,
Yeah,
Michelle Boomhauer.
okay.
I don't even find,
Find your own email.
I actually only can find the one from Kevin, and I got it. I thought I had done and replied to all, but I will have to apologize because I don't see gonna grab the original one and resend it
Okay.
to follow up, so. Drop the ball on that.
Well, you just let me know and I'll let the neighbors know and I'll be happy to do that. And again, let all of us in that area know if there's something that we can do that will help.
Thought still to find a place to put a railroad crossing for emergency use?
And we found one that the one who is worried about it is the head of the rail, program for the state of Vermont.
Sure.
Dan Labriere.
Okay.
He's worried because it's a really hard, he's worried about the safety of it.
Mhm.
And, that's why I wanted to come here and
Yeah.
look at it with us, because I think we, kind of unobtrusive and guarded so that as long as we have controls in place, that nobody uses it other than our emergency services, and they're certainly well aware that there's a rail yard there and that it has to be coordinated.
Right.
But I need to hear, I'd always thought that Vermont Rail was okay with it, but they don't, the state's got the promise there.
Okay?
On the same line, Steve from County Tire, he approached me yesterday and he said nobody followed through the discussion we had about putting some bumps in front of his store so the water.
We're gonna have Emily here later in the meeting, let's
Yep.
bring that up.
Bill Kernan provided those green tubes that are intended to be put out there, filled with material that would direct the stormwater, keep it in the street.
Are they, this is there now?
Yeah, those
They're
green.
there now, and I think the question is was that the permanent solution? Or
No,
was
no,
that-
it was just an interim.
That's an interim, and so
Yeah.
we're getting close to where the paving's gonna shut down, so I think he's worried about spring. So, I guess it would be, in some ways, I think it'd be easier for him to wait as long as he's got that interim solution, but it's not a proven solution.
In the infrastructure meeting, Emily stated that Seymour Street had come up on her list of things that needed attention in terms of stormwater planning and to address the area where in front of the Asian food store where, you know, the water surges out of the catch basins in big storms.
Oh, really?
So she's got it on her radar to do something next year, I think.
I don't think Steve knows about it, so.
Could be.
that's-
Okay.
Do it this week.
All right, wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Ken.
Thanks for the work all of you do for this town.
Thank you.
Having fun, man?
Yeah.
Take care, Kevin.
Is there anybody else for something that's not on the agenda?
Yep, we'll promote Emily here.
Actually, Emily's next on the list.
Yep. There's- Okay, give it a second. She'll come up. All right, Emily, you're a panelist now. There we go. Perfect.
Good evening, Emily.
There you go. All right. What's that?
Good evening.
Can you hear us?
Our internet is really bad right now, so hopefully we can get through this. To speak to the paving, the intent from DNF was to come back and pave a lip across the entrance, the two entrances to County Tire. The initial request from Steve was to do a pretty aggressive speed bump on their parking lot side, and I don't think that is in the town's best interest, just for liability reasons and for plowing and things of that nature. So I had suggested that we do a lip to at least keep the smaller storms out, and then if he wants to put in temporary speed bumps, similar to what we had on Rogers Road, at least that way he'd be able to move them out of the way for winter plowing, and things of that nature, so that they're not always an obstruction in there.
Have you had that conversation with him to, sounds like maybe he he approached Farhad, I'm not sure where he's at mindset or knowledge-wise on that, so maybe, you know which speed you
I
talked
told
with?
him that was our plan, and he still wants aggressive speed bumps.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm more than happy to take advice otherwise, but I don't want the liability of damaging a car entering the parking lot, or make it hard to plow the parking lot. I know from talking with previous owners of that property, there's always been a stormwater issue in there, and I think it got exasperated by the rail project. And I don't really have a great solution for that, but I think a lip across the front is what we've been doing for other constituents, and it has helped in the smaller events. It obviously, nothing solves the 1,000-year storm flow impacts, but it would help for the smaller storms.
So that would happen this fall? The lip,
Sorry, Fred, I couldn't hear you.
would the lip happen this fall?
Would the lip happen this fall?
It would, it would just be like a couple of inches, and it would go across where the sidewalk is.
Yeah.
Essentially, so we wouldn't, that's the other problem, the sidewalk crosses right at his entrance, and so we don't want to impair ADA compliance. So we can make a small lip to at least keep the flow in the roadway, and then we would trim down to the catch basin that's right there to help direct the flow that way.
Yeah, but can that happen this fall?
Oh, yes, that was the intention. DNF had to go and finish other town paving contracts, and then they were going to circle back.
Good.
Their plans typically open until December. So we have time.
Okay.
That's helpful.
Anything else on that? Any other thoughts?
So does everybody go
See how that
to your
works.
checkout, and is that the information
I
booth?
think it'll help. I don't know the ultimate solution. I'd like to be able to
That's
talk
what
to the
happened.
rail and get some leaf holes drilled into the actual tunnel, but I don't know that they would be
Ooh,
in support of that. But I think it would help drain that property.
push a drain line underneath.
Moving on to items on the agenda.
We're ready.
Okay, we have, Chipman Hill, there is an overhead utility that will be in conflict with the water tank location. So the thought was to get it out to bid so that it can get constructed over this late fall, winter. That way, when we do get the tank out to bid, it's not in conflict and holding up the bigger project. So we put it out to bid, only 2 contractors bid on it. I included the quotes from each, significantly different prices. But the recommendation from the engineer is to go with Champlain Construction for the lump sum cost of $15,850. Plus the additional ledge removal item, which is an unknown at this point.
I would move that the board endorse the recommended bid award to Champlain Construction for $15,850, and as otherwise stated in their bid proposal.
Second.
Second, any questions or comments?
That $500 per cubic yard, right? Is that what it means? So is that how many cubic yards, or is that it?
You don't know till you dig.
Okay, that's not in the motion, maybe you want to add that, right?
Well, I said as otherwise provided in the bid proposal, so it covers that. Oh, I intended it to cover that.
Just as easy to read them.
I don't think there's a lot of ledge up there, maybe big boulders and stuff, but it's a big glacial,
Well,
Wow.
boulders count as solid rock excavation once you get to a certain size.
yeah. Oh.
Right.
Okay. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed?
EWP funding that we received for work in the Middlebury River, to make repairs to the flood wall and also to make some further efforts at the bottom of the grist mill slope. Kathleen was still listed as the authority, and so we just need to get that switched over to my name or somebody else's to be the official designated signatory so that we can advance that project.
Emily, what is EWP, and is this just for the flood project on the Middlebury River?
It is Emergency Watershed
Planning?
Program. I think it's a program.
Okay.
But it's a grant that I applied for to help assist with the funding for the work in the river.
So this is Middlebury River. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I have a question. Is that, are we doing that now because we don't have anybody that can sign for it? Or is this something that was normally held by the town manager as to sign?
So Kathleen and I have had all of these in her name, and so as they come up, but we tried to catch them in advance of her departure. But a few of them we're realizing after the fact we didn't catch in time, so this is one of those.
Okay, so it's,
I think typically it is, I mean, I don't know that it matters, it just has to be somebody who's intimately involved with the project, so when the paperwork and things come through, the person's aware of what's going on.
okay, my only question for that is, we've got a new town manager coming on, and I don't want to be stripping the new town manager of things that a town manager would normally do before they arrive, because he agreed to the contract, understanding that.
Yeah,
So I wouldn't want to take anything from that position if,
and my concern would be whether this is a matter of internal controls for purposes of audit and spending money. Having a separation of duties like that between the public works and the town manager.
So are you saying, Andy, that you think it should be the town manager? And
I don't know, I'm not a CPA, I don't know what the full controls are or whether this matters.
I mean, the whole,
We could put it in the interim town manager's name now and go through the same motion in January.
Would you prefer that, Dan?
I would.
I'm fine with that. Are you fine with that, Emily?
That's fine with me. If that's the case, we might want to switch, we have the same for the water tank also. Right now, I'm the signing authority on that one.
I'm not worried about anything, but.
I'm not worried about it either.
Our town charter is pretty clear that, only the select board has to do everything relating to department heads through the manager.
Right.
And if that becomes some other factor someday, I think we just should be consistent about it. And I'm sorry if it's a added nuisance for you, Emily, to take something up to Tom and say, Tom, sign this, or whatever. But that's been our structure, I think, because of the charter.
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with that.
Are you gonna move it?
Sure, you
No, well-
name Chief Hanley?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I move to authorize interim town manager Chief Hanley to serve as the signatory for EWP funding on behalf of the town of Middlebury.
Second.
Seconded. Any other questions on that? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And then we need to change another one, Emily, you're saying?
We'll have to change the Northern Borders, regional planning, or regional commission, that grant is now, I'm the one signing it. So we'll have to get Tom, we can only have 2 people with access to the website. So right now it's me and Dana, so we'll have to
Right.
release Dana, get Tom, and then get him permission.
Oh, jeez.
Sounds like the next meeting.
More of a bureaucracy than I thought.
All right, let's move on to Maple Broadband then.
Okay, Maple Broadband, so I've been meeting with them, trying to be determine a adequate hub location for their services, and we initially located 5 sites within the community that they essentially need to be able to transfer data in 2 directions from the site to be an adequate location. And so of the initial 5 sites that I proposed, we narrowed it down to 3. With the packet includes the locations. 1 is behind the police station. 1 would be on the northern side of Mary Hogan Drive. It would be on school property, but it's in the section of the property that we have the easement on, and I contacted the school. They were going to take it to their board, but so far they're in support of it. And then the 3rd location, sort of forgetting the 3rd.
Behind the swimming pool.
Oh, the Memorial Sports Center. But that one has issues with actual infrastructure. It would be more expensive to get the information going both ways from there. And it would take up valuable parking spaces. So at this point, we're just looking for support for, I guess the way we did it, infrastructure, just ranked them to, just so that we could advance them. But it was, I believe 415 is what we came up with as the priority list. And then I guess if I hear your support, then I'll circle back with the school for that location to make sure we can move it forward. There's a grant round coming out this late winter, early spring. So ideally, we'll have a place lined up for them for that time frame. Once they get the funding, then they'll be able to advance it forward.
We had a bit more conversation at the infrastructure committee level about the number 1 choice, at the Mary Hogan Drive, setting it back a little further and landscaping it. It's the interest of the rec park. But without getting into the weeds on that, I think Emily heard that, and Ellie DeVillers, who we talked with at the infrastructure meeting, heard that. So I would move to support the proposed list of possible location priorities for a future Maple broadband infrastructure hub as recommended.
Second?
Yeah,
Okay, any questions or comments on it? And there is some record testimony about the visible issue with the highly visible spot for the first choice.
They talked to the school buildings and grounds person. When it gets to the school board level, there are other opinions that may come in about the aesthetics of things from our experience with working with the school board on a rec park lease. But, you know,
Okay.
I think that's a good place. It's just needs to look nice. It's not a very big thing. It's a very small pedestal.
Really central to town. It's supposed to be a hub.
And if it doesn't work out, the police wants to work out.
All right? Any questions or comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next is geotechnical engineering.
Oh, yeah, so Middlebury Skate Park Project put out an RFQ to get a geotechnical engineer on board in advance of the actual engineering. And we only received 1 proposal from Atlantic Testing Laboratories for $8,182.50. And we do have some funds allocated in the capital funds from the past 2 years. And so they're hoping to use that money to pay for it.
Oh, yeah, I love the skate park. I move to approve the proposed agreement submitted by Atlantic Testing Laboratories for geotechnical exploration work for the Middlebury Skate Park project for $8,182.50.
Second, is this because there's a lot of concrete in one of these, or
It's a heavy loading of those skateboards, in a geotechnical.
Yeah, it's a lot of backgrounding for a skate park, I
Well, yeah, it feels like a lot of engineering.
think. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Culvert drainage on Swale on North Pleasant Street.
Yeah, so, I've been working with the Vermont Disaster Relief Fund to get different residents, grant funding for damages that were incurred during the various storm events that we've had. And so there's a family at 94 North Pleasant Street that have had a slope failure adjacent to their property. And they had been struggling with getting a contractor in. They had contacted quite a few from the list that I had originally given DDRF, and nobody was able to do it, or their equipment was not large enough to do the job. And so they did reach out to Champlain Construction, who gave them a quote. Well, they've started working out there now. So I asked Champlain to give us a quote. We have a failed culvert just upstream of the property. It's a concrete culvert that the end section has separated, and there's a significant sinkhole developed just inside of the head wall, adjacent to the roadway. So I asked for a quote while they're there on site to repair that. It's beyond the scope of what our highway crew can do. So I figured it would save mobilization and traffic control costs, which are being applied to the other project. So I did not go through the full procurement process, but the homeowner did go through the procurement process.
I'll move to approve the proposal from Champlain Construction Company for $9,200 to repair a town culvert and drainage swale located nearby the planned VDRF work at 94 Pleasant Street.
Second?
Seconded. Any questions on this? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Before you head out, your internet
Hang
seemed
on,
to get better.
before we move on, Steve, but I think that is not the correct quote for the,
Yeah, I
for
thought
the
it was
culvert.
12,000 something.
That's for the property owner next door.
Apologies. Okay. Let me open up the document here, unless you have it there.
It's,
But I have, the culvert is,
Oh.
it's a total of $17,000.
Oh, it's the second, it's the
Right,
second.
17,000.
And a culvert.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll amend my motion to accept the contract from Champlain Construction for $17,040.
Still have a second, do
Right.
Yep.
we? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Before you head out, do you know if we still have ashlar blocks in the town dump?
Yes.
There's a bunch there, we do.
Yeah.
So, the Town Hall Theater is looking at doing something that's a little nicer on that slope that we look at. And I was wondering if there what's the availability for some project like that to bring them back into our downtown? To be used to help fortify that that steep bank.
Is this towards Merchant Store or towards the railroad?
Do we have enough to support them, do you know?
I don't know how many we have. I mean, that's just.
Do you know what they need?
I can find out if, would you, I mean, I don't know what the process.
So I drove out to, I didn't obviously count, but I drove out to Wright Park the other day, and I noticed there are still a couple of piles of the ashlar blocks at the stump dump. So I don't know how many there are and how many they need, but there are some there.
I mean, would we be
There
supporting?
are, yeah, I mean, we had used them on that slide at High Street, and then when we brought the larger stone in, we removed them. There are quite a few in there. my recollection.
Would that be something that we would support?
So this is on the river side of the Town Hall Theater's building?
I don't think she knows, Brian knows.
Yeah, from between the Town Hall Theater and the railroad on the riverside,
In the back, yeah.
in the back, where it's that steep back.
I would defer to Emily as to what's appropriate there,
Yeah.
and it might be nice to save a few of those for future town use.
I'll definitely, I'll take a look. I mean, they do come in, they are extremely useful to the highway crew for emergencies like the slide at High Street. So I wouldn't want to give them all up, but I can definitely look at what we have back there and what the slope would actually need.
Okay. And I'm not sure the exact, they're working with Red Loaf on how to design that. Originally, they were gonna plant just a lot of low row and shrubs, but I think they realized that they could do something that would look nicer and probably be more fortified, so.
Okay.
It'd be kinda cool if we have some available to have those back in our downtown. Tie it in historically, maybe.
It's not like the backside of that is something that's right,
You see it.
highly visible from,
I like to go with that.
well, from across the river.
Well, from the library and everything.
Okay,
You're gonna look,
any kind of rock,
what's that?
any kind of rock stabilization on the slope would look fine. I mean, I don't. I'm gonna defer to Emily.
Yeah.
Perfect. You wanna staff this, as you say.
So,
I have a quick
Guess
question
something for
for Emily. We had the water shut off at the store about 12 days ago, on October 10th, you did. We had no water for a day, but when the water came back on, every single time I turn it on, there's a blast of air that comes through the faucet, and it continues. And the water is very cloudy, it never used to be. I thought
Still,
it will go away in a couple of days, but I can leave the tap on for half hour, it still comes very cloudy for some reason. And once in a while, the blast is so loud that I'm afraid that something's gonna break there.
Is that from when they did the valve replacement on Middle Road North?
I believe so, October 10th, they did work and
Yeah, okay. Yeah, have you run it without screens on your faucet? Sometimes you have to flush it for quite a while sometimes.
no,
It might be harder in the store because you're probably, usually through a vast number of hose spigot is ideal.
Emily, does he need to pull the screens off from those faucets?
If you could, it would help. Or do you have an outdoor spigot that you could run?
I do have an outdoor spigot, but I ran this
I would
faucet before
I would
for
run
the
it through there
bathroom.
because that will clear the air out better.
I did run the two faucets for about half hour each,
Oh.
and let it run, even the hot water also. But especially in the morning when I first go in, it just a huge blast of air comes on. So I didn't know if it's
I
something
can
serious.
leave a note for the water department to come talk to you, if it helps.
Okay, that's great.
Typically, it's just a matter of flushing it though.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I think that's all we got tonight, Emily, thanks.
Thanks, Emily.
Okay, thanks.
Dave?
Okay, so this is just, we discussed this last week. This was an assignment from June, given to the Policy Review Committee that they approved in September. We reviewed it in more detail at the last meeting, I should say, and a couple of comments from the Select Board members that you can see highlighted in yellow there. I know Fred had a couple thoughts, and I think it might have come from somebody else as well. So what you see there, a slight change in that definition of value. Fred, you had mentioned reversionary rights when possible, and mentioning being clear about seeking input from staff. So it's just a reflection of the comments from the last meeting.
I think you did a great job.
Thanks, Fred. Appreciate it.
all right.
I'll take it.
Is that a motion to adopt?
Actually, I appreciate some of the revisions too. I think it flows better. I think we're better for it.
I would move to approve the draft town policy for determining consideration for requests for town-issued easements.
Second.
And second, questions or comments?
This is the third time that we
Yes.
Discuss this?
Second.
Third?
I think we had an initial
We got
guidance
the initial, yeah.
Okay.
in the draft.
Alrighty.
We're also,
Right,
third time we discussed it.
There we go.
All in favor?
Question?
Yes.
I'm just wondering how much this policy is going to tie the hands of this and future select boards in that it says clearly that you have to treat all easements the same. So far, the town has given easements away, has asked the taxpayers to basically subsidize them, and so this is what's going to take place in the future, it seems? Is that correct?
Not necessarily. There's a procedure, and this incorporates, among the things, that the very thing that you've advocated for, consideration of fair market value. So this was in part a response to what you raised, but there, we get requests for easements for all kinds. And yes, the board wants to be consistent with past practice out of fairness, but you've added the thing that you advocated.
But if it also says you treat them all the same and
I was just looking
you
for.
can't change, I just don't
Yeah, here's-
understand. How does it change? What's different?
here's where it says that when facts of a proposed easement reasonably match those of a previous town-issued easement, the select board will seek to set consideration in line with those previous easements. There's nothing that says that absolutely everything has to be the same. When you have two fairly identical ones, it would make sense that we would be, that we would treat them similarly if all the facts are the same, but
I mean, David advised us that the town attorney said we ought to practice at least some modicum of consistency.
Mhm.
Yeah. and then we
You know,
try
so
to
we're
do that
trying to do both of that, and there's things that will come up that we can't foresee, you know, that, and there's enough language in here that enables us to consider value even beyond fair market value. You know, that if something, let's say somebody requests an easement for something that, you know, is a very small footprint of square footage, but it blocks complete access to the parcel that the town needs. Beyond that, or, I mean, there's stuff that comes up that you can't think of all the things that will come up. So there's flexibility in this, and that's what I like about the way David wrote it.
I
it's
think,
actually very good.
and I think the advantage to this is, as the board changes, there's a consistent policy, procedure, guidelines for future boards to consider the same types of things going forward. So I think it's good.
Thank you.
I think we voted.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments, questions? It's up in the audience. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Jen,
If you want to stick on the gas topic and take Mike first, I'm here all night.
okay.
Oh, okay.
Let's keep them on.
Minimize
Let's
that.
separate the two, go ahead.
Don't stick me in the middle of this. I'm like the sorbet, I'm a little palate cleanser.
We're right on schedule,
What's
so.
up? You want to just let me know as we move forward.
Perfect, thank you. Thanks for a little bit of time tonight, appreciate it. Good to see y'all again. Wanted to let you know about a project that's kicking off starting tomorrow, technically. There's a kickoff meeting here in this room at 6 o'clock. We're going to try to start earlier and lure people in with cider at 5:30 to see if they want to talk about the comprehensive town plan in general, and just kind of chat about that casually for half an hour. But then at 6 o'clock, we're going to have Brian Wright and TPUDC here. They are the consultants you recognize from the Downtown Master Plan back again to help us with like a master planning zoning project. So we were lucky enough to be offered a grant, which is pretty big money in planning terms. $100,000 is a lot for a planning project. We were one of 12 communities offered to participate in this project. The money comes from Department of Transportation. It was going to be, can you go to the next slide? Sorry, I haven't. I'll pay better attention. So Department of Transportation associated with communities that were along the rail line, but they're also kind of venturing off into Ferrisburg and some communities that are on a bus line. And the idea is that so it's administered by Chittenden County Regional Planning. Addison County Regional Planning is a partner. Town of Middlebury is one of the participating towns. So it's a really fun consortium where we get to see some new faces. There's 5 different tasks associated with this project. The first, just project management, that's CCRPC. There's a real estate market analysis that was performed. Oh,
Is there something quick?
Yeah, I'm wondering if we can get the spectator screen turned on so we can see what's on the screen.
I got it.
Oh, yeah.
So a market analysis was performed by White and Burke. So White and Burke asked a bunch of different questions, tried to figure out kind of like what the market is, because there's no sense in doing a bunch of master planning and bylaw work if you don't really understand what types of buildings your community, your economy supports. So that'll inform the process. $100,000 for task 3, which is transit-oriented development, master planning, and municipal bylaw updates. So we'll talk about that in a second, what that means in a little more detail. Task 4 is a ridership demand analysis, just to see who's riding the train, who could potentially ride the train if they change the schedule some. How do we integrate with bus service? Why is there no Uber to pick people up? All of those important questions that really help buck up the transit aspect of this. And then task 5, if you want to go forward 2 slides, David.
Yep.
Task 5 is something else we might need you to weigh in on at the end of the project. They're going to try to get all those different towns together and develop a financial plan and governance structure. So CCRPC has a lot of contacts within Department of Transportation. If you think about it, Burlington is the only MSA, so they always have access to transportation funds that we don't. So they're really good at tapping really bizarre sources of funding, like the ones that funded this. So maybe they can get us, help us set up financing vehicles or hook us up with grants to help fund the implementation of some of these ideas.
What is MSA?
Yes, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Metropolitan Statistical Area.
Thank you, Fred.
What is it?
Metropolitan Statistical Area.
I wrote down all the acronyms in your brief right there, and looked them all up.
I'm sorry, I'm talking fast and with acronyms.
Yeah, sorry, it's the world.
It's helpful.
But you just threw a new one, so.
Yeah, it's like a little different life up in Chittenden County. They have access to all these transportation funds because they're big enough to qualify as a metropolitan statistical area, so they're the spoiled child of Vermont for sure. So another acronym on the next slide here, transit-oriented development, just 1 second on that. The idea, transit-oriented development promotes a sort more city style of growth where you integrate your land development with your transport service. I mean, ideally, it's a city with, subways and transit like that. But this is a really fun opportunity to try to take a rural community and try to retrofit that to sort of an urban living experience, which I think would appeal to a lot of people around here. So, does the entire project hinge on whether or not we can get that train to run more than twice a day? No, not at all. It just so happens that this sort of compact vertical style of development that would support transit-oriented development kind of overlaps with what we wanted anyway, according to the downtown master plan and conversations we've had since. So we're just kind of piggybacking on the idea. So whether the transit comes in or not isn't going to be I don't want to say our problem. It's not going to be a deal killer at the end because we'll still.
Transit, like we talked earlier, is both bus and trains. And the idea of enabling much more density and higher level buildings and so forth, how would that feel to people in Middlebury, and would it economically work in a way and to help pay for some of the additional transit services, whether bus or train to Burlington and so forth?
Yeah.
Right? So that's what this is about.
And as one of our planning commission members, really restated to the board the other day, like if we can reduce our reliance on vehicles, then that's a good thing too. So here we are using planning and zoning to try to reduce our reliance on vehicles. So thanks, Fred. I say things fast and you slow it down when you need to, so thank you.
I sense that we went faster for some of these.
I appreciate it.
Catch up with.
So next slide.
This one or the previous?
This one or the next one. Yeah, they're all, no, go ahead, please.
Yep.
Yeah, so the project approach is that we would have our kickoff tomorrow, First, they develop an illustrative plan. You remember all those beautiful illustrative plans from the downtown master plan? So this is choosing a new place to do that. It's a really great way to inspire a conversation and try to figure out what the level of tolerance is for this verticality. Do you like 3 floors, or do you max out at 4 floors? Can you go 6? You know, and just show some different images and see how people feel about it. And then theoretically, well, not theoretically, absolutely, this consultant will go and develop a new code based on this vision. So excited to have Brian doing this because he's the code master. He can just look at something and get a vibe for the feel of something and just translate it into code. He does a lot of form-based codes. I think this will end up being more of a hybrid form-based code. We don't really have so many developers dying to come to Middlebury that we want to do a form-based code that might be a little difficult to administer, but we do want it to be prescriptive enough that a developer could come here and feel like they can just check some boxes and not deal with a big conditional use review at the DRB hearing. You know, it's just, that's how the bigger towns do it. It's a little more sophisticated approach, slightly different operating system. I'm concerning Fred a little bit, but don't worry, because we'll have multiple iterations.
It's an interesting experience to see how ready the town is for more urbanistic stuff.
Yeah.
When we did the Marble Works Westridge and added a floor level, you know, we were worried, would that feel okay? A lot of people respond well to what it looks like in the context, and this is what this firm will do, is provide some visuals for that. Whether it works economically is, you know, attracting development is about attracting investment. And so the pieces of this that look at both of those, what it looks like, what people feel comfortable with. For any plan to be really successful, it has to engage people and be financially practicable. You know, and we'll see. It's a very interesting experiment.
A couple examples of master plans. This was a go that one of our interns had at that site. There have been several classes that have invited me to little symposiums, you know, the little report out sessions at the end of the semester to show what they've done at the site. A lot of interest in that area over the past couple years. Next slide. And these are some of the master plans that TPUDC has done for, you know, that's the EDI site in the left-hand corner that you recognize. And the right is, you know, more of a full neighborhood scale master plan. So we'll probably see something a little like the one on the right. Moving ahead. Just little bragging rights. This was a map from the downtown master plan that showed sites with development potential. I like this map a lot because it correlates closely to some of the zoning districts we created in 2022. And it also correlates kind of nicely to our project area. So we're not just picking these sites out of the blue. We identified them in 2020 and we're kind of moving forward with trying to figure out what to do with them. Because, I mean, the sort of common sense way of explaining this is that, you know, you've got vacant parcels there across from the Amtrak station. They could very well change hands in the next 5 years, maybe less. You know, we don't have a lot of control over what the private sector is going to do. They'll buy a parcel, I'll run them through zoning, but I can't control everything about what they do. So another way that, a non-regulatory way that a municipality can try to kind of, I don't know, like work with a developer and convince that developer to be in a position to be sort of the hero to the town that helps us realize a vision instead of the person we need to do combat with, like you're messing up our vision, is to do a master plan in advance. You know, it's like, it's going to make you like the really great prom date that everybody wants because she really like, you know, like did work on her outfit and knew exactly who she was, you know? So I think that appeals to developers. Some people are enjoying that metaphor, some not. Okay, so let's go to the next one.
A lot of people complain zoning is inhibiting to housing development. That Stone Crop project had theoretical capacity for 600 dwelling units, and they were only able to put 200 and something on it. You know, would people really have been happy if there were mid-rise apartment buildings on that? So zoning is really not the obstacle that people think it is, theoretically. But attracting investment and it's a much more ambitious kind of a experiment to study this, to see whether it will really attract investment.
So good segue with the mention of Stone Crop. You know, it's not enough. We say we want more housing, right? And so we can loosen the zoning regulations and up the density and get development. But we want it to be development that is courteous to what's already here and gives us great neighborhoods, not just neighborhoods. So next slide. planned unit developments, you've all heard that term by now. That's just something in state law that we can do. Instead of just doing a typical subdivision, you could do a planned unit development subdivision. And state law says that allows us to kind of play with the dimensional requirements and play with the uses and kind of do what we need to do with that subdivision to make it right, even if it doesn't fit in with the zoning, right? So we've used PUDs to be a little bit more permissive in subdivisions in the past. Next slide. This traditional neighborhood development PUD that you guys passed in 2022 is a specialized kind of PUD. So it's almost like I think of it as a plug-in section of zoning. You can sort of like plug it in and it just works with your existing zoning. You don't have to change the zoning around it. You just plug it in. It gets triggered when you're in the R20 district at 4 or 5 units or more. And then you have to use this section of the zoning. And this section of the zoning does all those great things that create a wonderful neighborhood. It requires a certain amount of affordable units. It requires you to have a variability in the housing type, green space, open space. All these garages, except for 3 or 4, are going to be rear loading off of rear alleys. That is so cutting edge. So cutting edge that the 911 people didn't know how to assign the addresses. They're like, what is this magic?
1957, when they came up with alleys.
I guess. Okay, so it's not cutting edge?
No, it's an old thing that we reinvented.
Well,
You recognize that as a stone
It confused the
throw.
911 people, I can tell you that. So.
What's the address? Front or back?
Right, exactly. Because they don't see subdivisions like that a lot, and certainly not outside of Chittenden County. So there's just so much I'm proud about with this subdivision, and part of it is because, Summit was a great developer to work with, but a lot of it is because our zoning required it. And Summit never balked. Summit never told me like, oh, we can't afford that. They actually participated in helping us create that zoning before we passed it, as you recall. So this is just a real success where when you have very prescriptive zoning, but it's still reasonable, it helps that developer do the right thing. And so now it feels much more like the town and that developer are a team as we go into the breaking of ground there. So, yeah, next slide. I just wanted to show you visually. So on the left are the images that are from that T&D section. Like, that's what that specialized PUD creates. The buildings on the right are more like what you might want down near the Amtrak rail platform. You can see the difference in terms of the height and how close they are to the street, a little less green space, more urban on the right. So that's why, in the next slide, thank you, David, sorry. This is why we're trying to spend this money to create yet another kind of specialized PUD that would be triggered in a different district at a different scale of development. That would be the new transit-oriented development PUD.
So this would be a separate section of our zoning code that gives you maybe different height allowance, different ways to do if you're in proximity to transit resources.
Absolutely. And it would be triggered in certain districts at a certain scale of density, like 4 or 5 units or something like that.
Even though this is for reasons of responding to what the grant offered, focused on a particular study area, there's no reason why we couldn't borrow from what we learned from this to make more of the community transit friendly.
Sure.
So I think whatever we learn from this ought to be able to be usable through the planned unit development provision in the zoning elsewhere in town.
Or if we like what it's
Seems
creating,
appropriate.
if we like what it's allowing, and we find that we're really comfortable with that, what I call an operating system, that sort of hybrid form-based code operating system, and developers are like, wow, this is so prescriptive and easy for us. We don't spend a ton of time hung up in like conditional use reviews and design advisory committee, and we don't know what's going to happen to us. We know if we check all those boxes, we're guaranteed an approval. If that really works well for us, we can take that operating system, we can put it in other parts of town, near the Shaw's Plaza, down by Farhad, like wherever we want, like a little bit more development. So, yeah. So just trying to spend that $100,000 wisely. I'm pretty excited. So we've got the meeting tomorrow. If anybody is like a housing wonk and wants to take like a deep dive with a consultant, I've got 2 half-hour slots left. You could meet up with them on Thursday. I've got one at like 10, 10:30. I was kind of holding one for you at 8:30 because you're a morning guy, but like, whatever. So just give me an email if you think like you want to get in deeper. Yeah.
He's already lined me up.
I
Really?
have a question about Act 181. Is that the?
Oh, don't quiz me. I'm not going to know.
Sorry. No, I just know that there's, as far as our local zoning, there's these tiers for various levels of 250 review.
Yeah.
And that we need to have like a 1A submission in if we want to have the latest amount of state 250 impact
Yeah.
on portions of town.
Yeah,
Is
so that,
right?
their consultants ought to check into that and write this in.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I know that the RPCs are central in providing guidance to municipalities on that process. I was just wondering where we were in that.
We have not received guidance from
Okay.
the Regional Planning Commission. We haven't even received guidance from ACCD at the state level.
Okay.
So I've been forgiving myself for being a little lazy because I don't want to like read it, think I understand it, and then have them tell me it's something different. But, you know, I know that the TND was enough for us to qualify, I'm sorry, let me get this right. The traditional neighborhood design PUD that we used for Summit
Yeah.
was, you know, met all the requirements for us to be able to qualify for a neighborhood development area, that geographic designation, and that's a really hard process to clear. So if this is even more dense on top of that, I feel like we'd be in a really good position for qualifying for the top tier. Yeah. Plus, this is all in that NDA. So if it's, you know, Summit was exempt from Act 250. This would be too if it met their affordability requirements. Maybe that's the other reason I'm not sweating the Act 250 stuff, because I know that for the right affordable housing project, they're going to be exempt anyway. So I'm already getting what I want. But good question.
Most of what we do in our downtown, designated downtown will be exempt from Act 250 anyways.
Uh-huh.
The new rules.
Yeah.
So, but they're still issuing guidance. They haven't hired the full-time staff yet.
Right.
That stream corridor is a stinker, though. You know, the EDI site falls within the stream corridor, like a bunch of the Marble Works, and behind the Marble Works all falls, you know, and those things are always exempt from those benefits.
Is this close enough to the river that it falls into the stream corridor?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think there's quite an embankment, you know, behind like the Addison Independent, and it drops off and it lessens in the valley where the old wastewater plant is, but it reappears again up on Otterside, you know.
When he
And I
said,
think the
when he
area
said,
that's low down by the river is gonna be a river corridor.
when he said this, I think he meant the EDI site, where you pointed in that direction.
He was asking about whether this
Oh.
district,
The one you're talking about?
Yeah, the parts that are along the river, like Fred says, that are down the hill.
but
Yeah.
there's still, and I think it's gonna be fine to, you know, have those areas be in their pretty much natural state for whatever increased storm frequency and intensity is gonna do to us. But there's plenty of other land up above, you know, like between the police station and Otterside, and some of the land that Gary Baker owns and others that, you know, could accommodate quite a bit. And it'll be interesting to see how that can be visualized and what residents who are invited to this will think about it. There was a proposal for some housing done by Smart Growth Vermont in between Otterside and the police facility. And, you know, the reaction from neighbors was kind of NIMBY-ish. They like walking their dogs there, you know. And it was a beautiful design, much like the Stonecrop one. So you never know how neighbors are going to react. And even though we're exempt from Act 250, that still could be an issue. So engaging neighbors, testing what they feel is comfortable is an important part of advancing, you know, the realm of the possible for.
I was glad to see you had Gary on that list.
Absolutely. I started with Gary. I mean, we're just so tight anyway. We talk about this stuff all the time. He's one of my favorite people to talk planning with. Yeah.
Any questions for Jen?
Gary's on the list. Sam is on the list. Dave Hamilton is going to be on the list. He's currently the head of the ACCT board, or they call themselves Addison Housing Works now. Yeah. So we've got a lot of fun people there to inform discussion. Yeah.
I didn't know that he was working with Addison Housing.
Yeah, and the DRB chair. He's a busy guy and teaching at Harvard, and yeah. Thanks again, guys. I appreciate it. I'm a little over time, but it was fun.
No worries, thank you very much.
That's a preview.
Yeah.
Mr. Dumont.
Yes, Your Honor. And I have with me Attorney Sarah Starr, who worked on the Supreme Court case with me.
You want to both come forward? Happy to have you both. You gotta grab another chair from there.
So this is a first for me, and it's very intimidating to appear before a panel that includes Mr. Dunnington, who wrote Chapter 117 of Title 24.
I didn't really write it. We did some revisions for affordable housing back in the early 90s.
He wrote it. He wrote the whole thing, the zoning statute.
Yeah, well, I was a zoning mechanic once. Anyway, and we've been through some Public Utility Commission, Public Service Board proceedings and the Velco, and so, anyway, go ahead and do your presentation.
You all have the memo I wrote on September 25th, I assume. My pitch for you today is that you should put your oar in the water. You can decide later the direction you want to paddle, but you should put your oar in the water. There's no deadline yet because VGS hasn't filed its petition with the PUC yet. Once VGS files the petition, by statute, they have to notify you quickly or immediately, and then you'll have some time period after that to submit the form saying you want to be an intervener. If you don't become an intervener, you can submit comments, like any member of the public can. But if you don't become an intervener, you can't submit questions and get information.
So it's about party status,
Yeah.
like with the hydro, right? And very interesting to read through the stuff that you attached in there. I'm curious, are there towns that have retained you as a client? Or that you're a client, that are your clients in this, or what's your?
So I represent, and Sarah has represented with me, a number of individual landowners.
All right.
And I would not accept a town as a client because I think there'd be potential conflict of interest with my individual clients. So what I'm trying to do is make sure you all know what your options are, and hopefully you'll become an intervener. I mean, if you're a town and you ask for it, you automatically get that right. You know, it's automatic. And then I hope to get you information from our engineers, and then you can act on that information, and you can request information that you want from Vermont Gas. Sort of the big picture here, over the last 12 years, I've learned that there are pipeline engineers all over the country, but there's only one who will testify against the industry. His name is Richard Kuprowitz. He's based in Seattle. He used to be a pipeline engineer who worked for the industry, and then he went out on his own, and he's working with us on this, and he is prepared to, he's planning to testify when we have hearings, and I would, share his information with you as well as information from the engineer we have been working with, who's a Vermont engineer, who's a forensic engineer, and his name is Greg Liebert, and what I provided links to his testimony. Some substance of what he said up until now is, it's absolutely astounding to him that a project like this could have been built without a supervising engineer. It's just mind-blowing.
The engineers didn't stamp it and state and supervise the actual construction.
Right.
But Vermont Gas has been providing service in Vermont for 70 or 60 years or something like that, including a lot of lines that are in utility rights-of-way, Velco rights-of-way. And I'm not aware that there's been a catastrophic disaster. So
we would all be aware of it.
Well, yeah, I know you, if there was one, you would have brought it out. But, so they, in this case where you pointed out this deficiency of not having a supervising engineer, that's potentially serious. But I think the town of Middlebury ought to be a party to follow along, because the consequences of Vermont Gas not getting a certificate of public good ultimately potentially are significant. A lot of people in Middlebury use natural gas in Middlebury College. Businesses, they rely upon it, and if this ever worked out to somehow require some change in that, that would be pretty significant for the community. So being able to follow along and understand what's happening I think is in the town's interest. I'm not sure that we're necessarily where
Yeah, I wouldn't expect you
you
to be.
are, or
Yeah,
some people are
yeah.
who really would rather just see Vermont Gas disappear. It was interesting in reading through all the stuff that was linked, with with your expert's testimony, and some of that is pretty meaty stuff. I mean, he linked the construction contract that Vermont Gas had with Clough Harbor, at least the draft contract. It wasn't signed, but that's like 388 pages. It was in our packets here, and I don't know if the board really got into that, but I read this stuff because
I'm sure Mr. Carpenter read every page too.
There's 100 pages of the pipeline integrity management system, that's incorporated in that contract. That was, part of the national, because the federal government regulates pipeline safety as well. And so if there were a catastrophic explosion from this, it would be obviously pretty serious, but there hasn't been that experience. Anyway, I think it's in the town's interest to follow this, and by virtue of being a party, you're not representing us. You're not gonna say, oh, I represent Middlebury, and Middlebury doesn't want.
No,
Okay,
no,
so,
I wouldn't go there.
What's the remedy for the fact that some parts of this might have been buried less deeply than it should have been? In your opinion, what are you asking for?
Because it depends on where you are. For example, if we're talking about New Haven, where according to their engineer, they're only 9 inches away.
So should
from
there be
failing
better
the standard.
marking of it, or do you want them to dig it up and replace it? What do you want? What are you asking for?
Okay, it depends where we are. Okay, so if we're talking about New Haven, there is really great cause for concern for the wetlands in New Haven, because the pipeline has gotten so close to the surface. In Middlebury, actually, you can't say that you know how close it is to the surface, because I don't believe they've told you. They've told you what their plan was to bury it. But one of the things I've suggested that each town do is say, we want to know the current depth of cover in our town of the pipeline. So that's the first thing I would think, that you would want to know.
There's only a tiny part of this that actually jurisdictionally comes in Middlebury. It's just up to behind the rental storage units on Route 7 North, up by the cycle lots. And from there it becomes distribution.
Right.
But that's
Right to the end of
just barely over the town border is where it,
Well,
is the part that's in Middlebury.
It goes to where there was that wonderful flaring demonstration. Yes, which is either in or next to the industrial park.
Just before the industrial park.
You know what the flaring issue was? I know Mr. Carpenter was on the select board. So what happened then was, Vermont Gas depends on this inline testing. I think they call it a PIG, that runs through the pipeline. The PIG doesn't work unless you have enough pressure. And they didn't have enough pressure to actually test the pipeline. So without telling, whether it's the select board or the neighbors, they just put this tremendous amount of pressure in it to get the PIG from north to south. And then they had to burn it off. And it's sort of, to me, it's just an example of the level of sophistication we're dealing with here. And yes, it's true, we haven't had an explosion here in Vermont yet, but they didn't in Massachusetts either.
Well,
You never have one until it happens.
I know, but 60 to 70 years of a perfect safety record is,
Well, I don't want to disagree with you, Fred, but the data nationally is that the newer pipelines are more prone to explosion than the older ones. And most explode, they don't know why. It may be that construction has gone too fast. There are lots of theories about why, but the older ones don't have breaches the way the newer ones do. For whatever reason, nobody knows.
we only learned in one instance, happened to be with the Halliday Road culvert, that Vermont's gas line on their as-built plan wasn't exactly where it said it was. And it wasn't a big problem for us, but, having good as-built plans is pretty important, because you don't want to accidentally dig into these things and cause a problem. So
And that
I think
is one of the
I think
most-
it's important. I don't want to, belittle this, but I think the town should follow it, and I just don't know what the remedy is. If you don't know how deeply things are buried or how accurate the as-built plans are, it's gonna be pretty worrisome.
Right, so-
So I think the town should follow it, but I,
Yeah, and I don't expect the town to say close down the pipeline, but like in the letter, it said, here's some questions you might want to ask.
good, because
You know,
that would be a
yeah.
tough meeting.
I wouldn't show up. So, thank you.
And by requesting to receive party status, we'll get all the notifications and everything as well.
We'll see what he's,
I mean, it'll
we'll
be
see what he's
easy.
ultimately gonna advocate.
Easiest,
Revenue.
well, we can make a decision what our actions are, but as far as asking for party status in an ongoing situation that actually does involve potentially the town of Middlebury, I would think we would want to do that.
Thank you.
So, what do we need to do that?
I think the town, there's a form that you fill out to ask for interveners party status with the Public Utility Commission, and that's something we've done for,
So
we have attorneys who prepare those forms and submit those for us, at least for the hydro. And
do we need to make a motion
I think we should.
authorizing?
Authorizing chief to submit for party status.
Is this something we talked to about with the town attorney?
Yeah, yeah. Benj could prepare it. It's not a complicated, I wrote one up.
I don't think we need to pay an attorney for this.
Yeah, as far as if we were to decide we wanted to take any action,
Yes.
Yeah.
then I think we would want legal advice, but as far as this is.
I have a question.
And
Are you telling us this to be a nice guy, or is there some motive to get the towns involved in this?
Well, I'm,
The latter.
frankly, when I read the letter that Vermont Gas sent to each of you, I was outraged. They were saying this is just a minor technicality, everything's all taken care of, don't even bother to get involved. And so my initial reaction is, I have to get out there and explain to people that's not true. Just sort of out of a sense of outrage. So my goal is to have every town involved and the regional planning commission and have them ask good, hard questions. And I think we'll get a better result if that happens. Better for my clients and for the towns.
Okay.
It's true with any development. You know, you can have development agreements, you can have, with the stone crop, it's all boils down to inspection. And as-built drawings being accurate and following engineering accepted practices to protect everybody's liability. That's what needs to happen, whether it's a pipeline project or a residential development.
Mike, I think you had a
And
comment.
I was just gonna say, like, the Energy Committee has no financial stake in this. We do not have clients that we're representing. And we wrote the letter because we were very concerned about safety and thought that it would be very important for you, because you have that ability to be interveners and to participate in the process. The Energy Committee is happy to help in terms of research and helping with questions, working with Jim and all of this. But it is, just to be clear, you know, Jim is representing these particular individuals. The Energy Committee is trying to think about the energy needs of our community. As we said in our letter, there are issues, like if it fails, that's a disaster for our community. And so making sure that it's safe is not just an issue of like a catastrophe where people are dying, but it's also if the pipeline gets shut down because it has failed, even without a catastrophe, people are not gonna have gas to their homes, to their businesses.
Well, yeah, getting the gas shut down or coming to some point where we don't have gas in this town would be absolutely devastating to this town, because all of our industries in college are running on gas.
Well,
And there's no going back. You know there's going back.
There's no going back, but there's going forward.
Right.
Going forward is going to be ultimately
A safer system.
weaning ourselves off of this altogether.
You know,
But that's a different.
Well, that's a
Again, you
100-year project.
You have to have some faith that Vermont Gas has been doing this for 60 plus years, And their contract, which is in your packet, if you click through that and get the 388-page draft contract between Vermont Gas and Clough Harbor, you can see that Vermont Gas paid $8.25 million for engineering to try to make this engineered and safe.
And then,
There's a significant investment they made
Well, I don't think
for
any
for
company is
this,
gonna.
so you have to have some reliance on that. So yes, the potential is alarming if there's an explosion, but there hasn't been one, and they spent a lot of money on it, they tried to do it, and they have a lot of experience, so that's kind of where it sits. And what the Public Utility Commission is gonna do about this, I have no idea.
our
I would
expert,
just say that you are correct. I know the analogy that I would use is Boeing. So Boeing used to be safety first,
Yeah.
and I had no qualms whatsoever about getting on an airplane that was made by Boeing. And the culture changed, things changed, and so the past doesn't predict the future anymore in terms of safety. So I think it's your obligation to look hard at what's actually happening.
And if you read the Supreme Court's decision, what the Supreme Court ruled was that Vermont Gas went ahead and made changes without authorization and then asked for forgiveness later and,
Well, that's a
spent more
Vermont
money.
tradition.
Right, and it's a bad tradition.
I know it is, I'm just saying. Lived through 30 years of that, was on.
So the prospective involvement of the towns will make sure that there's transparency about what they're going to do before they do it, and it's above board, and we're not in the position of having to figure out what's under the ground when it's already in the ground like we are now.
I can't resist pointing out that our expert went through that contract and the current communications, and what he found out was Vermont Gas canceled the part of the contract that called for continuing supervision by Clough Harbor. That was in the initial contract, and to save money, Vermont Gas canceled that part of it.
Yeah, developers do all sorts of things to try to save money. I've been there.
And I think, right, and I think developers are different than people that run gas pipelines, which are basically explosive devices.
So I'll make a motion to authorize interim town manager Chief Hanley to submit a petition for intervening party status in this issue.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Dedication. Isabel?
All right, thank you all for giving me some time to talk about our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. Farhad and I are your select board representatives on that committee. And we started that committee in 2021. We got a lot of great survey data from DEI consultants at the state level that worked with the committee at the time. At the time, that committee had a lot of participation. People felt very active in that committee. We met pretty regularly, and we always had a really packed agenda with a lot of items that, included action items, things that we could walk away with. Initial goals for the committee were to increase accessible services. I think we've really done that when we think about updating our website. Our website is a lot more accessible. I think about the items and what we catalog at the library. We're getting a lot of more new, diverse books that represent a lot of different lived experiences. And when we think about like the police department, when it comes to recruiting, and the recreation department, when it comes to the programs that they offer, I think they're offering a lot more a variety when it comes to like adult and youth programs. We also wanted to focus on safety. So thinking about creating a community culture where people feel safe and we're reducing the hate and acts of harm that we see. And then also focusing on welcoming, which is just outreach to new community members. And I think we really focused on that when we think about trying to table at different events and trying to cooperate with other organizations that do this work. But I feel like Farhad and I have been at the past couple meetings and there's no one showing up. It's Farhad and I and Chief and David. We don't really have a lot of agenda items, and I think we're really looking for some direction. So I guess some questions that I'd like to pose is, thinking about membership engagement, like what strategies should we implement to recruit more people, especially from underrepresented communities? thinking about the work plan that we have staff that are working on a work plan that aligns with the 2022 data, and they're actively working on it whenever it comes up, but it's not something that feels like action items attached to an agenda that Farhad and I could lead a team on. When we think about like impact measures, how do we know that what we're doing on the DEI committee is actually helping our community, right? We don't really have any, end guidelines. And then what do we want our long-term vision for this committee to be? I love getting together and talking about diversity, talking about inclusion in our community, and also having those conversations one-on-one with people, but I think we're losing steam when it comes to us having that conversation. I know that conversation is happening throughout the country and throughout our community on Middlebury College campus. There's so many community organizations and student-run organizations where they're talking about equity. I know there are different work groups, and equity is at the center of a lot of the conversations around housing. But I think when we think about how we're having that conversation here at the town, at the committee level, we're not getting participation. And I don't necessarily think it's because of the timing of our meetings. It's just, we don't really have this like spectacular agenda where we're tackling these really fun, beautiful, like difficult conversations to work through. So we're not really getting a lot of participation in activities. So I'm kind of looking for, again, ideas on membership engagement and like impact measurements, and then also like a long-term vision, if anyone has any thoughts. And Farhad, David, feel free to add to that.
I think the interest pretty much dropped off when Tabitha and Lisa finished their job.
Our consultants,
yeah, and we had a full-fledged group right after they left, and one by one, Ross also was part of the group. I think some of that has to do with the scheduling also. I think some of them because it was not convenient for, I think you mentioned that you couldn't make it at that time slot. One of the things I noticed, I don't know if that's a big factor, but normally when we have a meeting, we send reminders a couple days before or something. What we are working off is on a Google Sheet, right? There's a schedule we make.
The work plan is on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
The calendar is whenever you want it to be.
So I don't know what's there to tackle as far as when there's only 2 or 3 people sitting here. We don't know what to talk about, and we meet for 15 minutes, then we table it for the next one. So if there's participation, I would love to be a part of that, but right now, like you mentioned, what the structure would be, assemble when a related issue is raised, or quarterly meetings, or when we need to. We need guidance on that, I think.
Well, so in the committee, or, we have the benefit of 20/20 hindsight. If you look back and said, is there anything that we've done that, from the perspective of DEI, we could have done better? Any example, anything we can use to?
I think the main thing that Tabitha and Lisa did was they interviewed the departments, and they met with people, and they did these workshops, and they created a survey. That was the extent of what they did. I don't know if I call that a long-term end result to what we are supposed to be doing. Ongoing dialogue should be, what else can we do to benefit this community?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think there's a lot of organizations who are doing this work, and I think there's a huge need for us to partner with other organizations who are already having the conversation, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Middlebury College is probably having these conversations. Like I said, housing's having these conversations. So I don't see Farhad and I as necessarily the experts to lead the conversation, but I wonder how through partnerships we could promote the work that's already being done elsewhere, and make sure that maybe we have memberships from our departments, membership from our select board, attending other meetings. And then, I don't know, maybe at some point we host something right? And we are able to talk about equity and inclusion in our community. But I think for right now, there are people who are leaders in this conversation, and instead of paying consultants again, right, us just tapping into those partnerships, I think is something that we didn't do that we could do moving forward.
Ross?
Correct me if I'm mistaken, but I think the consultants, in their report, they provided some next steps and suggestions of things the town could do. Have we done all those things?
So when you say, have we done all those things, is just, are you talking about the group or the town doing something?
Both, I guess. I mean, have the suggestions from the report been implemented?
Yeah, so we created a work plan with the 2022 data and recommendations, and it's on an Excel sheet. I was trying to look at a past DEI note to find it, but it's kind of stuff that when we're working on another project, we can kind of put that equity lens on. All the things that were like, if you can implement it now, do these things, I think we have, right? We've made our website a lot more accessible. We've looked at our hiring practices and made changes where, you know, it feels like we weren't as equitable as we could. But I think when we think about like building our Stonecrop Meadow project, like there were ideas that we could have implemented to talk about equity and inclusion and affordability. And I think we went into that conversation with that lens as well. So it was more, some of them were like, do them now, and some were, when the project arises relevant to this, think about this.
Okay.
So, and that's in that Excel sheet, but I couldn't find it.
Well, I've got some ideas, and now that my busy season is over, I could be involved
Join
again
back
if
up,
you
yeah.
hold your meetings at a time when I don't already have a commitment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, or if not,
Great.
I can just throw them out at you and see what
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
do.
send Farhad and I an email.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there things that you would look for us to do to help connect that, make that connection with other groups?
It's so tough because I put this on the agenda and I don't exactly know like what we're asking for. It really is to bring awareness to, it feels like a blank agenda. It really does. Farhad, any?
I think if our group needs to move forward, we need participation. We can't be 2 or 3 people meeting every 3 months. I don't think that's gonna work. And I haven't seen any, personally speaking, I reached out to many people when during the course of my day at the store, and I haven't seen a lot of interest. People always say, oh, you're doing a good thing, but I don't see anybody willing to be part of this. And that's where I'm struggling with.
DEI seems to be associated or becomes important when there's issues. And that's what kicked this off.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. So, we certainly don't want to create issues, but, it's become less important because of the community we live in. And if we don't know, I mean, there's a lot of people that live in this community that are different than me.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that we need to be asking the questions of. You're asking a group
Yeah.
of almost all white people,
Yeah.
you know, how do we think about DEI? And it's always the wrong group to be asking.
As well as people with a strong sense of belonging,
Right.
strongly invested.
And this is my community.
Right, no,
So this is the wrong group to be asking these questions of.
My thought and hope for this project, since, like, I think that we need something which, we need processes that help everyone with an understanding that some people feel less enfranchised and less sense of belonging. And my sense was that if we had good feedback mechanisms for interactions with the town, good ways to collect experiences for people after incident report for a fire or police involvement thing. Some way of just starting to collect information so that we would know where as a town providing services, they're doing a great or a not as great job, that could be kind of an entryway to know where to improve the processes. No. That was my only thought around it.
But I think partnering with the college and understanding what the college is doing, because they obviously have a staff that works in Garland. So
But they also work with a much more diverse group.
Yeah, they
There's
do.
an active student body there, and
Right.
they have issues also happens there. We don't come across that much
Right.
in our town business.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I foresee us like tapping into maybe joint programming too, so when they're hosting something on their campus, you know, making sure that they send the invite to us so that we're going,
I
because
think so, yeah.
college students are members of our community, so being able to have them feel like they have belonging in this community, I think is another great thing for us to do. So partnerships, joint programming, making sure that we have a really feasible way to get feedback after incidents, yeah.
I always felt like we met a big chunk of our objective also with
Yeah.
just the education and awareness
Yeah.
that we received by the training. I do feel like if we're not currently linked in with the efforts at the college, then that's certainly a population that would give us feedback of experiences within the town that we could look at how they're, when we talk about feedback on processes. I think they probably collect much better data than we do. And that might be a ready-made feedback channel.
I think Dan made a great point that, you know, this comes up in the instance of, you know, situations that the town finds itself in. One that comes up for me is, I have no idea, what would those friendly to the cause of DEI have to offer to the homelessness challenge that the town is going to walk into soon here? I have no idea what that would mean, but I wonder about it.
We're looking for a place to
Yeah.
put tents, and the football season is becoming momentary, so.
Football?
Football stadium would be a good campground.
Okay, I think we've got some notes to work on, at least for the next agenda. And then we'll actively recruit.
Yeah, this is good. I was just looking at the charter statement, I guess, whatever it was that the select board did, creating the commission, to see like what, if there were goals or vision in there, and I didn't really see them. And so that makes it kind of hard because you're training them as we go with the idea of like, what are the metrics? How do we, what's our North Star here?
Yeah, well, when we created that, we were looking for education.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we didn't know.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Does the, I have a question about the
Sure.
DEI, like, I've been curious about this for a while, like, does the DEI group really kind of focus on, like, race and ethnicity, or are you also looking at the hard line that gets drawn, like, between socioeconomic, status?
I
Because,
think-
like, when I'm trying to engage people in the planning process, for
Yeah.
instance, it's the less privilege that I'm worried about as well.
Yeah, like, I think the goal is to really, like, view all underrepresented identities that we don't necessarily see in our community, hear from our community. You know, attending our select board meetings, we have a lot of the same people. So trying to get more people to come involved and become involved, I think was the goal. I know that there's, like, in our work plan, things related to like ADA as well.
And as a planner, I'm super interested in those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did reach out to one of the occupants at the encampment here, who has a job. Unfortunately, she doesn't have housing, and I asked her if she's willing to come to the select board and bring her perspective, what it feels to be, because we're all talking about them, and they're not part of the conversation, which I think is not right. So I wanted to bring it up at the board member concern, if I can ask her to come and talk to us. If it's okay with you, I'll let her.
I apologize, I take long pauses, it's really easy to interrupt me because I trail off. But I was asking that question to kind of set up the idea that maybe if you would have more things on your agenda if you sort of expanded it in that direction too. And I could really see, especially with the new town manager coming in, us really working on our town processes, right? Because, like for instance, like where are we gonna build a sidewalk? Well, now we've got a bike ped plan, and so you're able to look on the list, and that was an inclusive process and included a lot of people, and people can still bring their project ideas, right? So now we're moving toward this really equitable, transparent direction of like choosing projects to fund as opposed to like a vocal minority showing up and harassing people at multiple meetings, which is not equitable because those people probably had something happen in their lives that made them feel comfortable talking at meetings and being loud and being assertive, or maybe they've got a hookup like, within the administration or something like that. So I could almost see that group sort of expanding in the future to help, me and David and other people who are gonna be working on these things coming up to expand the role. That makes sense. We need more plans.
Get checklists.
That's me.
Yeah, I got it for you.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Okay. I move to approve the total expenditures in the amount of $993,347.30, consisting of $855,703.76 in accounts payable and $137,643.54 for payroll for the period of October 8, 2024 and October 22nd, 2024.
Second?
Second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
I just help.
Board member concerns, Fred?
No. Thank you.
Heather?
I don't have any right now.
Isabel?
Great car show, great pride parade. Awesome.
Couple great events.
And spectacular coming up.
You say the high parade?
Pride parade.
Yeah.
Pie parade, I'd be down for a pie parade too.
I've never heard of a pie parade. Boy, did I
That'll
miss
be
that.
good, yeah, right? Holy cow.
Rahat.
I have a couple of them. A smaller one, which is, there's too many fruit flies today. I don't know what's going on.
Mine was gonna be a nice touch. He gave us, each of us, one fruit fly to battle for the night.
It's like,
Each of us had our fruit fly.
so what's going on, David?
We are locked in an epic war with them right now in this building.
People eating a lot of fruits and leaving them
Winning
here or
for
something?
now, but no, we're taking some steps to see what we can do.
Did you put in like a worm compost device?
Yeah, we purchased wonderful little fruit fly things for them to fly into, and we're trying to find where they might be in the building.
I would start at the town manager's office. That's where
I've got enough there. Both our offices are full.
We started by blaming each other, like it was your apple, like it's your. Then we realized we're all the same.
Towns are going to fruit flies.
K&K from BMP, they wanted to let you know that they ordered 3 Adirondack rocking chairs for the plaza here.
Oh, nice.
They're there now? Okay. So, and Woodware gave them at cost, so, which is great. They talked to Bill Kernan and he made it happen, I think. So that's the second thing. The third thing is Jen's presentation today, I have to say, was a little bit hard for me to follow because there's a lot of information in a small amount of time. So I'm going to go back and read through it, and if I have any questions, I'll let you know. But Fred seems to know a lot about these things, and he made a comment that zoning is not the issue about housing in this town. So I want to have a conversation with you sometime about that,
Okay.
because I think the chemistry in the select board has changed a little bit, because you seem to know the answers, and you seem to have a conversation with the presenter more than anybody else. So it's hard for us to squeeze in a question sometimes because you also have the answer to the questions with the James Dumont and Jen. So for me, I don't know, where do we fit? Do we ask a question in between? Because I appreciate that you know a lot, but I don't know how.
Well, I don't want to make other board members feel uncomfortable, and I want to use the knowledge and energy and the time I have to try to work on town things, but I don't want it to make other board members feel uncomfortable. So I'm worried about that myself.
I think we have to feel, you don't want to make Jen feel uncomfortable also
Yeah.
with this too, so.
Yeah.
But tonight was a pretty good example of balancing each other, so. But you're in a hard spot.
Well, I can't help the knowledge that I have. It's an occupational hazard.
If we were doing airplanes, I could really help you out here or something.
It's also awkward for me because I don't come see you that often.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you need to come visit us more
I
often.
think I'd like to.
You
yeah.
need to, periodically, you need to come here. We need
Like
to see
I'm
you.
dropping like a giant pizza on you know.
Well, yes, but-
We need to start with some personal things.
Oh crap, what's happening, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
Come
think
just come see us.
there's a very big project going on in the update of the town plan that
Yes.
it's a big thing when it arrives at your doorstep. It's gonna be a lot, so warming them up to what the progress is would be pretty important.
Yeah.
We'll let her, if that's all right, it's another topic.
Yeah, and I feel like we could talk more about housing, you know, some of our successes. There's some successes that I don't want bragging rights, I just want you to have those bragging rights when you're in the community and people are like, hey, you know, you didn't, I want you to have that like ready at hand, be like, no, we're actually pretty awesome, this is what we've done.
We need to talk more about housing, because that's our number one project, and we keep saying that here. We need to be talking about housing.
And I'm gonna say that you need to be talking about your infrastructure, because you've got to make sure it's in good shape before you put all this housing in.
We talk about infrastructure every single meeting
Oh, isn't it
for a
great?
long time. I think it's fabulous. So you don't tell us you're being shortchanged here.
She's feeling left out now.
I wanna put that $100,000 to the $50 million wastewater treatment upgrade.
I want to put it to the library.
Okay.
Wow.
Was that your?
Oh, no, I have some more smart aleck things.
Oh, dear.
One thing I'd like to, don't partner with Tractor Supply when it comes to your DEI efforts.
Oh. Indeed.
You and I are the only two that know that?
No, we all know that.
Tractor Supply and John Deere dropped all their DEI efforts about 5 or 6 months ago in response to the political climate in the country.
John Deere did too?
John Deere did too. All about the farmers now. And I understand the farmers are important, but they dropped all that. They dropped all that from political pressures. I wanted, Fred, I thought you brought up a really interesting point tonight with the gas, and I was waiting for them to leave. Gas explosions and gas things get really big news because they blow up. How many houses and how many buildings and how many people have been killed by the infrastructure of electricity distribution in this country compared to gas? It's probably at 10,000 to 1 or even more.
I know it.
And we don't hear about that.
I know.
Yeah. But I thought your point was really, really, really good about that. It's not something, 70 years of proven safety, but when it goes big time. But we have houses that burn down here in the state on a monthly basis.
Electrical fires.
Because of electrical distributions.
Yep.
So. I'm not trying to belittle or belate or lower this thing, and I don't need any more conversation because it's late. Call me.
We're gonna have a really interesting and probably more than an hour long second bite at the encampment policy meeting tomorrow, midday, in this very room. That is likely to be a very interesting conversation.
What time is it?
I think it's 11:30. I attended the last housing task force meeting at United Way, and again, just blown away by the energy and compassion of that group of people. Probably 20 people on the call, in the room and online. And to pour your energy and your heart into folks that are in such a bad place day after day is something I could not do. I know that about myself, and I need more comfort in my life than that. But anyway, it'll be an interesting conversation for sure. I got shoes on today.
And Jen, your meeting tomorrow, who do you want, who is supposed to be showing up to that? I mean, is it, who do you need to have there?
Oh, at the kickoff meeting?
Yes.
I don't know, like whoever's interested in learning more about the project. I kind of stole his thunder tonight by kind of walking you through it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a lot like tonight's presentation, only better because it's him.
Okay.
So,
Okay, are you expecting town folk to show up, or has it been advertised that much?
I flyered that whole neighborhood, so it's either gonna go really well or really bad. So
Yeah.
I flyered that whole neighborhood. I tried to make really clear in the poster that there's nothing happening to them, you know, but that it's like a visioning, casual sort of session. So I'm hoping that people show up. I really trust Brian's facilitation skills. He could handle whatever energy is in the room.
Right.
And on Thursday, you're looking to meet with some select board members? Is that
No,
the
they've
plan?
already, she's
Yeah,
already
and
done that.
actually, I don't know if you're free tomorrow night. Like, that would be perfect for anyone who felt like I went like a little fast tonight
Those
because
are
Brian.
the appointments she was talking about.
I can make it tomorrow, but
That'd be
Thursday
great.
I won't be able to. You said there's something that says Thursday.
Yeah, so Thursday is an opportunity for people who want to take a deep dive and talk one-on-one with a consultant about their ideas for that site or what they visualize for housing in downtown, you know, so everyone's going to be at a different place along the spectrum, so I just didn't want people who want to get some like more intense questions answered skipped over. So Fred was the first to sign up. We've got Fred down for an hour. If anybody else, you know, is at that level of wanting to get deep, I got some spots around 10:30. Otherwise, we'll sit around and I'll talk to them. But, you know, like I've also like, you know, invited other people who are like in the affordable housing arena. And then landowner Gary.
And tomorrow's here, right?
Yeah, tomorrow's here, 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock's kind of early. Hopefully you're done at work. But
Where are they doing it Thursday?
yeah, Thursday I'll be here in the conference room. Yep.
I don't know, shoot me a note in the morning and I'll take a look and see if I can do 8:30.
Yeah.
That's the time you said.
Yep, that one's open for sure.
This one doesn't have a location.
Do we have an executive session?
There's no location.
Briefly.
Okay. I need somebody to bring us into executive session.
Move to enter into executive session with the inclusion of interim town manager and assistant town manager related to the evaluation of a public officer or employee as allowed under Title I, Section 313A3.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize, I didn't catch this.
I made the
You
motion.
did, and somebody seconded. Somebody did.
Yeah, somebody.
Somebody, just right now, some.